similarities between the corona crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the climate crisis, to begin with, is the disruption. We have changed our lives very quickly since the pandemic has begun. And with the climate crisis, we will also see a disruption in the world that will be way deeper and in more aspects of our life. And another thing, like that, we can even see some similarities in few of the causes, because as we are still like learning more about how the pandemic has begun, but the main reason so far that the community has, the international community has put for the pandemic is eating wild animals, whereas in the climate crisis, livestock and is also a big part of the causes of the crisis. So this is another similarity. And I think a third one is that we can see how our societies are now global. If the pandemic started in China, it took a few months and it was in Europe, in the Americas, and other continents. The same with the climate crisis. There will be continents and even countries that will face worse risks, but it will be global. We cannot have the illusion that if you are in your country with net zero emissions of greenhouse gas, that we will be safe. No, this is a global crisis as well. And I think perhaps the main difference is the cause of the pandemic is well determined, whereas for the climate crisis there's no virus, one single cause for this pandemic. So that's another difference, that is way more complex, and we have to address several causes at the same time. And talking about the lessons learned, one of the things that we are observing is that the global response has been way faster for the corona crisis, although we still face some of the difficulties that we have on the global cooperation for climate change, because countries, they don't trust each other. Sometimes, for example, as the patents of the vaccines, like this is a global effort. Like it's better that the vaccine is cheaper for everyone, because otherwise we are not going to face this as an international community. Nevertheless, we have seen that when we have a priority, okay, we have to face this crisis, things that we thought would be impossible, that would take years or 10 years at least to happen, such as, for example, the home office, which will have a positive aspects for the climate crisis as well. We see that this happens way quicker with the political will, and we have seen that countries that had better leadership, they are faring better right now in this third phase of the pandemic. The US is a good example, because when we had Trump as the president, the country was navigating the crisis and with way more turbulence, whereas when the leadership changed to Biden, to someone that respected the science and put the pandemic in the heart at the heart of his government, and to solve this issue, we have seen like a total change in the direction through vaccination, and the country past even Europe that has been having a better leadership since the beginning compared to the US. So I think that's another example that we have that we can apply to the climate crisis, that we need good leadership, and we need to make addressing climate change as a priority as we are making now addressing the pandemic. Okay, so like the state of emergency that we are seeing in the pandemic, and also in 2019 we have had many organizations, civil society mostly, asking for the world, the countries to declare a climate emergency state. What would change in that way? I think few things. Like if we are recognizing that we are living in a climate emergency, we will make this our priority. So we are not going to approve projects such as coal mines that will make this crisis even worse, even more. We are not only stopping these approvals and going to another direction, but we are going to go faster. So if we're hoping to stop the operations of coal mines by 2030, perhaps we have to do our best to stop this earlier, because it's an emergency. It's like we are in a house that is on fire and we are still putting oil that make the fire worse. So we have to take all the actions we can to revert and at least mitigate this crisis. And this goes in several directions. So if we are living in a climate emergency, every aspect of our policies, every company should put this at the heart of their plans, and considering each action, like the product that you have, if we are making this crisis worse or better. And lastly, but perhaps one of the most important things, is that we need resources. So we have like so much money going for stupid things that no one needs. Like we have billionaires that are like spending this money into, like, for example, 200,000 euros champagne. Like this is a waste of resource, and I think this is an important thing that might change if we declare a climate emergency, to make it facing the climate crisis one political focus, and also channel funds and even redirect funds that were going to make this crisis worse, as for example fossil fuel subsidies, to addressing this crisis.
If nothing is done, emissions will go up as they were going up in the past. So what we need is to make sure, as you mentioned, that we combine the response to COVID-19 with the climate change concerns.
We could talk a lot about this topic, but perhaps one of key takeaways from comparing the climate crisis with the coronavirus pandemic is that we don't have a vaccine for the climate crisis. So that's an important thing. There's no silver bullet, there's no miracle. We will have to change many things at the same time in a speed that we have never done before. So this should be, in my opinion, the main goal for everyone that wants to make a difference. Like no matter if you are a human rights activist, if you are a lawyer, if you have your restaurant, you can make your work part of this transition. We have to, like, we need all the brilliant minds using their time, talking to each other, and develop solutions as fast as we can. Thank you.